Discover the heartbeat of Lexington at the Marriott City Center, your premier downtown destination. Let us handle all your meeting needs, whether you're planning a corporate gathering or a special celebration. Our elegant, versatile spaces provide the perfect setting for every moment. Don't forget about our great room bar, a perfect spot to stop in after work or before a game to enjoy handcrafted signature cocktails. You don't need to be a hotel guest. Just relax and unwind, whether you're gearing up for the game or winding down afterward. Lexington Marriott City Center, your ultimate destination to stay, connect, and celebrate. We've got everything you need to make every moment unforgettable.
Corey, welcome to the show.
And I'm glad to be here and talk UK football. It's still one of my biggest loves in this life, even though it's been a tough year.
Let's talk about football for you. When did you get started and why did you start playing?
I just wanted to play. I grew up in a small town in Mississippi, and at recess every day, we would go outside and play football, and that was where my love came from. Growing up, I thought I would be a running back or somebody that gets to carry the ball. And I think this is the real test of whether you love football. We showed up for the first day of football, and they say, hey, you're going to be on the O-line. And that's for a lot of the big guys, the realization or the chance to really determine, do I love football? Do I really want to play football? Or is this a situation where if I don't get to carry the ball, do I want to be a part of it? For me, I loved all of it. And even not being able to be a ball carrier, the love was just there. Being able to compete, it's nothing like football. I started out in middle school and just went from there. Was a big athletic kid and just got better every year.
Biggest influences for you in middle school, high school?
I had a lot of good influences from my coaches, really good parents that were super supportive of everything that I had the idea of wanting to do. But as far as football, middle school coaches, high school coaches, guys that really took an interest in me, my high school coaches were the ones who really pushed for me to go to football camps. My high school defensive coordinator, Bill White, who's passed on, was one of the guys who took me to UK camp my freshman year, which was how I got my first offer there. That was really the birth of this idea that I could play college football. I hadn't really even thought about that. I have to give them a lot of credit for that. He took me up there, and a lot of my coaches facilitated trips, helped me get to colleges, to visit schools. It was a community thing.
So you go to Central High School, Corey, one of the longest standing schools in the city of Louisville. A lot of star power has come through Central. Do you feel like there's a badge that comes with being a graduate of Central and having the level of success that you've had?
I really have a lot of love for Central. So as far as the schools in Louisville, there's a number of schools that don't really have a district, so to speak, where kids just in this area go to this school. There are a lot of schools that do that, but Central's one of the schools that you have to apply and be admitted. It really is a choice school. And there's a lot of competition in the city and a lot of pride with where you go to school and who you represent. Just being part of that legacy, the people that I went to school with, the people that came before me, some notable names, Muhammad Ali. There's really a lot of pride there. And seeing the success that they've had on the football field has really been something wonderful to watch. And I'm hoping that continues. Central High School definitely is one of the top schools in Louisville. And I definitely would recommend it to anybody looking for a school for their child or any young man that wants to get a great education. Anything still in sport.
Jeremy, Central High School is the first Black high school in the state of Kentucky. I was just doing some research, and most of the people know in the South, those high schools had some of our most distinguished people. And the way we think about CP is we think that he's one of the most distinguished alumni that we played with. Corey, from your perspective, how much of that did you learn at Central, was taught at Central, and then your family, just how to carry yourself, how to represent the community, those sort of things?
I definitely think it was a huge sense of pride, obviously having the background and being one of the first Black schools before desegregation. They continued that legacy and location and everything. It's definitely something that we talked about when we were in high school. I can remember participating in protests and all types of activities that kind of feed that side of your brain and your personality, your development. Obviously, your high school years are incredibly important for your development. Having Black teachers that really poured into you, having people that have done the things that you're trying to do and been successful at them, being able to see that example, being able to have teachers and administrators really speak to that. I think it's incredibly helpful in allowing you to know and understand what is truly possible and what is expected of you.
What advice, Corey, would you give to high school students when trying to balance academics, but also potentially trying to go out and pursue a scholarship, whether it's in athletics, the fine arts, those type of things? What does that look like?
One thing I always talk about with young people is being the same person every day. One of the quotes that I like is, how you do anything is how you do everything. So it can't be just, okay, boom, I want to be an NFL player or NBA player or whatever sport. I'm going to give my all to my training, my nutrition, to the decisions I make off the field that's going to negatively affect my performance on the field. You can't be all in on that. And then when it comes time for your academics, be lukewarm. The habits that you form, especially as a young person, going to carry for the rest of your life. And I've run up into a lot of people in the NFL who ultimately fail because their foundation wasn't strong. One of the big changes from high school to college and to the pros, for that matter, is the amount of freedom. In high school, it's, okay, we're assigning homework. Did you do your homework? Why didn't you do your homework? Okay, let's do this. Let's try to get that rectified. And then you go to college and they don't care if you do your homework. They're just going to give you help. Nobody's going to hold your hand through this and baby you. And it's really up to you to be an adult about it and handle your responsibilities. That's the same way it's going to be in the pros. You're going to have even more freedom, more time off, more time in the off season to make bad decisions, to not train, or to do the things that are not conducive to you having success. My biggest thing would be build the habits that's going to make you successful. And there's a lot of continuity across all fields. It's not just football. For a lot of us, and even the people that football does work out for, I'm on to something else now. And I like to think I got a lot more life ahead of me than I do behind me. So the habits that I formed as a teenager now are even more important now as I take on new challenges and do things that I maybe don't have as much experience with as I did with football. I would just encourage them to focus on complete and total development, focus on your habits, building winning habits that not only will make you successful in sports, but would also translate to school, to the job market, to whatever it is you end up doing down the line.
Had anybody in your family or anyone that you knew closely gone through the recruitment process as a high school student athlete?
Yes, I had some cousins that went through some recruiting processes a little bit lower level. There were a couple guys in my high school that went to big schools the year before and 2 years before I did. I was able to talk with them a little bit. My coaches were an amazing resource. My parents were incredibly helpful, although a lot of times I feel like parents don't always know what the right question is to ask. And it is helpful to have somebody that's been through the process that can at least point you in the right direction, say, hey, you need to ask this, you need to ask that, you need to make sure of this or make sure of that. Between all the people around me, we were able to put together a really good plan and get me in a situation that was the best for me.
Or you're a new father, you got twin girls. If they're fortunate enough to go through the process to be recruited as athletes or as governor scholars, what are the questions that you would ask as a father?
For one, I just want to know that they'll be well taken care of, regardless of what happens with the sport. As we know that any sport, injuries, anything can happen out there when things can change in an instant. So that will be the first thing I would want to make sure that my children be taken care of, regardless of if they're the number one player on the roster, if they're the last person on the roster. That would be the most important thing to me. Secondary would be finding the best place for them to be successful. And a lot of people think that the bigger the school, the better the prestige. That's the best opportunity for me. And I don't think that's the case. I think you have to find the right place for your unique set of talents, the need of the school, and then also the personalities that's there that you're going to be working with. Everybody has to be on the same page instead of being in a situation where you're trying to put a round peg into a square hole. That just is going to frustrate everybody. It's going to frustrate the student athletes, it's going to frustrate the coaches, and ultimately it's going to leave everybody wanting more. And so I think fit is the key word, meaning what are the things that are important to you? What is it that school wants out of this situation, and finding the best situation where all those things can marry.
Corey, we were blessed enough to have been recruited. There's that dynamic between being courted as a high school kid and then getting into the program and you're back to being one of the freshmen or the rookies. My question to you, and from a parent's perspective, especially in today's day and age with NIL, how do you help a young person navigate the process of staying humble, but also being courted by some of these schools?
The people in these young people's lives need to be brutally honest with them and keep it real with them. I think for me, I've always had people around me that told me the truth. Now, I've never really had a problem with humility just because I think I was really naive. I approached the situation at UK, although I was highly recruited. I didn't come to UK thinking that they were going to just put me in the starting lineup or that I was the best guy. When I got to UK, I'm looking around the room like, oh, this dude's better than me. This dude's better than me. This dude's better than me. I have noticed that there is a difference with the young people that I talk to. They seem to not really be completely aware of where they are in relation to their peers. In the NFL, I got drafted, came into a situation as a backup, not really expecting to start or, not knowing what they wanted me to do, but coming in open-minded and being willing to do whatever they asked me to do. And ultimately, that's what allowed me to last so long is they gave me a small task. I did a good job with that, and they started giving me more things to do. And by the time the first game came around, I was starting. I think that's the best approach to it. But if I was talking to a young person, I would just always say, hey, the work comes first, and you have to put in the work so that when you do get the opportunity, you can take advantage of it. I've seen a lot of people who did not put in the work. They still got the opportunity, but they weren't ready for the opportunity. And once you fail on a big stage, now everybody is going to draw their opinion of you off of that. So if you only got one opportunity, I talk to kids sometimes and they say, okay, coach doesn't like me or all these excuses, whatever. They get in the game and they fail. They have a bad performance. And now coach really doesn't like you or really thinks that you're bad, really thinks that he's not ready to play. And instead of taking all those obstacles in the front and putting in the work so that whenever you get that opportunity and you never know when it's going to come, you could take advantage of it, then you're really playing into other people's hands.
Or what is it about Kentucky that made it the right fit? You were a highly recruited guy, had the opportunity to go to places where on paper looked like you could potentially compete for a national championship. You chose to stay in state, go to Kentucky.
I'm a transplant to Louisville, so I wasn't a fan of either per se. I was a neutral in the situation. Obviously, you can't avoid the rivalry in Kentucky. I didn't have a team per se, but I was open-minded to it. When it came time for recruiting, Bill White forced me to go to a Kentucky camp. He told my mom to ask if I could go to this camp, and I never mentioned it to her.
It was because you was a Louisville fan.
No, I didn't want to go to no football camps in the summer. This is my time. I'm not about to go. I wasn't even thinking like, oh, I need to get scholarships and all this. So he called my mom and she made me go and I was upset about it. Ultimately, that's what led to my first offer. So that was the realization for me, man, maybe I could play college football. And so from then on, I'm going up to UK games, like unofficial visits. They would give me tickets to the game. My friends wanted to go to the game. Only about an hour drive for me. So if I could get a ride up there, I was going to as many games as possible. After some time, I got so comfortable with the coaching staff there at UK. I wanted to be away from home, but close enough so I could get home if I needed to be. And so it worked out that way. And then as things kind of start falling, I realized I just had this special place in my heart for Kentucky. At the end of the day, when it came time to make a decision, I just couldn't tell Kentucky no.
What are some of the plays? What are some of the games where you realize, man, I can do this for a living? Like I have a legitimate shot to be an NFL player.
I realized pretty quickly I was a little bit terrified as a freshman. Man, am I ready for this? Am I physically ready? I really didn't know. So being able to play early in a backup role and get my feet wet without the team really needing me to be the guy per se, I think was really helpful to me. So I was able to make mistakes and learn on the fly and get better step by step, little by little. And it wasn't perfect. Early on, I had some rough games, and I realized that the issues I'm having are not physical issues. It's technique stuff. It's being able to really understand how to play. And so I really honed in on that. We had a really good technical coach in Rick Petrie. That was incredibly helpful in learning the proper way to play football with your hands and your feet. And really just honing in on that and focusing as my body caught up, physical development, all of those other things, it all just clicked for me. But it probably was a little bit towards my junior year before I really started thinking about the NFL. I had a coach come up to me and say something about my future in the NFL, just something in passing. And my response was, wait, you think I'm going to be in the NFL? I was just focusing on being the best player that I could be. And so from then on, I said, okay, maybe it is a possibility. And looking back at that from it now, obviously, if you're a 3-4 year starter at a SEC program, you're obviously NFL prospect. It sounds silly looking at it from my perspective now, but at the time I wasn't there mentally. I'm grateful for that because I'm not sure that I would have approached things the same way had my mindset been, oh, I'm an NFL player.
Yeah, that's interesting. Court, there's 16,000 high school football programs. There can't be 16,000 qualified quarterback coaches, defensive tackle coaches, linebacker coaches. What advice would you give to parents, to kids, to assist them in their development if they do have aspirations of playing at the next level?
Yeah, I think as a young child, I wouldn't so much focus on the super specific skill development. I would more so focus on total athletic development. I wouldn't specialize with a child. I would put them in as many different things as possible. One of the things that was helpful to me was wrestling. That would be huge for any football player, but specifically, if you think a kid's going to be an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, I would really encourage wrestling. Playing as many different sports as possible, being as active as possible, just working those muscles, jumping, cutting, running. I think it's all incredibly helpful. And at the end of the day, as you get older and as you get more physically developed, you'll start to be able to hone in and specialize on whatever it is that you think that is going to be your path in life. But I think by not doing that so early, you can prevent some burnout as well as develop an overall athlete, not just somebody that can only really do one thing. As far as your trainers, I just say, hey, get with somebody that is going to really care about your child, somebody that's going to look out for their well-being. As far as football, they need to be trained in head-up football and safety. You got to stay out there and watch practice and listen at the instruction they're giving them, especially surrounding tackling and blocking and high-speed collision. Any coach that's telling your son or daughter something that is physically unhealthy, is you need to get them out of that situation as soon as possible. If you got a football coach that's telling your kid to lead with his head, you need to get him out of that situation as quickly as possible. And there's lots of programs. I know the NFL has programs. Some other organizations have programs that the sole purpose is to teach youth football coaches and other sports as well the proper techniques to play football in a safe way.
Are we talking like Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold?
I think everybody has to decide for themselves, you know what I mean? But you don't want to play those kid games, especially not early on with a child's development. I have seen some crazy things in youth sports, some coaching choices that I don't think should be anywhere near kids or high school, anybody really. But at the end of the day, a lot of the main requirement for a youth coach is the time available and the willingness to do it. So it's not necessarily a commitment to doing things the right way all the time or the proper training to even instruct these kids on how to play football in a safe way.
If you could line up and play one more college game again against the team that you competed against, which would it be?
I think those Florida teams we played against and the Tebow years, looking back on those rosters and seeing what kind of NFL careers a lot of those guys had, I love to compete with those guys again. They got the best of us. I remember preparing for those games thinking, man, this got to be the best team that I've seen assemble. And I know Tebow gets all the credit, but man, Tebow might have been the worst player on that team. That's how good those teams were.
Honestly,
They're really good O-linemen. They had really good skill positions. The defense was really good as well. It's impressive to really sit back and look at it, especially now looking at it from this perspective and say, oh man, that guy played 10 years. When you're playing and competing at a high level, you always want to compete against the best and have the opportunity to measure yourself.
We historically played Georgia really well. We played them tough during our years. But then, of course, teams like Florida that we didn't play well. I'm curious from your perspective, having played so much in the NFL, and you think about with the qualities that some of these guys had when they became pros, what do you think it was about our team that matched up well with certain teams, but maybe didn't so well with other teams? What do you think was the result of some of that?
At that time, 95% of the SEC was traditional pro-style offenses, line up, run the ball, play action. We were built that way as well. We could play against the Georgias of the world, or the LSUs of the world. If the game is going to be double teams and combo blocks, we could play that style. I think the thing that gave us the most trouble with Florida was the speed. When Urban Meyer came, he was one of the few coaches bringing in a different type of offense. So when we prepared for Florida, it wasn't like preparing for anybody else. Everybody else at this time wasn't running a bunch of shot and now they did have some power elements to it. They still had the guys to run that type of style, but it was so much speed. I remember Percy Harvin running the jet sweep, and dude got to be the fastest person I ever seen. And so I think that was the biggest difference for us. We just could not match up with the speed that they brought. And not just one position, they had it everywhere. They had their running back, and they had speed at tight end. I think Aaron Hernandez was on that team. And so it just was a different kind of beast. We were down there at Florida playing, and they were beating us pretty bad. And they took Tebow out. And you know who came in? Cam Newton. And I'm like, man, who is this? Who? This is the backup. You know what I'm saying? This the backup y'all bringing in. So that's the type of team that was. But I think that how we were built, we were hard-nosed, physical, run the ball, stop the run. And I thought we were really good at that. And that's why we were so competitive with all the other teams. We beat LSU, and they won a national championship that year. If you think you're going to come in and just run the ball, that's right in our wheelhouse. I was confident that we could play with anybody running that style, but we just did not have the speed to match up with Florida. The coaching we received, the way we were trained, the way we had an incredible belief in ourselves, and we knew that we could play with anybody. You build that with hard practices, with really competing against each other, and knowing that, man, when the battle starts, the guys next to me are going to stand up with me.
So I get traded to Denver in 2011, and I'm sitting at breakfast, and Tebow sits down. I'm minding my own business, just eating some breakfast, and Tim sits down. What's up, Jarman? I'm like, what's up, Tim? What's going on, man? We small talking, and then he transitions to the Kentucky and Florida series. Real casual, real smooth. He looks me right in my eyes, CP, at breakfast. He said, Jarman, I loved when we played y'all. And I was like, why is that, Tim? He said, it was the craziest thing. We would have the worst weeks of practice. He said, there'd be guys that didn't even come to practice. He goes, had to send the Pouncies to go find them, go get them, bring them back. When we get out there on game day, it would just all come together. And I'm looking at this man. Look, Tim talks shit with the best of them. Like he does. Like people think that he's just holier than thou. He's a typical dude, typical bro in the locker room. Not too many times where I'm just speechless, but I was in that moment.
You can't survive in that locker room holier than thou.
Yeah.
We've seen documentaries. You hear Urban Meyer, he had a comment talking about the Patriots locker room. He could fool a lot of people. So I had the pleasure of taking a visit to Florida when I was being recruited. And you can sense some of that culture when you're there just visit. It's a culture that's on the edge. How we put it. It's survival. Every second you're there, you're survival mode. And some people thrive in that type of environment. Some people don't. That doesn't surprise me. I'm sure it might surprise the masses.
Let's talk about the state of Kentucky football. You view it from a few different lenses as an alumnus and now as a scout in the NFL. What are realistic expectations for the program?
We're obviously in a rebuilding phase based on everything that's transpired, guys leaving. I wasn't expecting so many guys to leave, but the season we had this past season was just unacceptable. Ultimately, we had come to expect a certain level from a Mark Stoops coach team, and we haven't reached that. I'm looking forward to a little bit of a reset. Everybody's upset with where the program is right now. I'm sure the coaching staff feels that as well. And so I'm looking for us to get back to being a hard-nosed, physical, defensive football team. And that may be a process. It may be a couple-year process to really get us back to where we need to be. But I don't think it's something that's impossible. I've seen this staff put it together before, be able to get guys on campus, guys that are NFL players, frankly. And so I look for them to continue to work to do that. And with this new NIL space, we have to maximize that as much as we can. And that's the new reality of it. If you're not willing to invest X amount of dollars into the program purely from a position of acquiring players, I'm not sure you can be successful. But at the end of the day, it's about building a winning culture, thinking outside of the box. If the kid's not from Kentucky or doesn't have a tie to the school per se, I'm not sure how you convince that kid to come to Kentucky over Georgia or Alabama or the majority of schools in the SEC. So you do have to be creative, find different ways to think outside the box. You have to get in early on these kids. That was one thing we talked about with my process. If Kentucky wasn't one of my first offers, I don't know that I would have built that relationship with the staff there and felt so comfortable when it was time to make a decision. So I know things have changed quite drastically. Kentucky has to change with it. They need to be on the cutting edge, on the forefront of new ideas, new ways to acquire talent, new ways to raise NIL funds, new ways to spend it. And we need the fan base, the businesses, everybody around the program to really come on board, be all in with it as well. Do your part to get these guys on campus.
Jeremy and I talk about it all the time, how you procure talent at the college level is so much different than what it was in 2006 or whenever it was that you guys came out. And I wondered if you're Kentucky, like to your point, and you try to procure talent the same way that the league does, per se, if that's a winning proposition for Kentucky long term. You've seen in this offseason guys that they wanted to keep, we weren't able to keep them. So my question, Corey, to you is, how can Kentucky rethink how they manage a roster? Are there things you could take from the NFL to help manage a roster, keep players, but the types of players we bring in? Because when we came to Kentucky, a lot of times Coach Brooks and staff were looking for guys that maybe weren't the tallest, but they turned into pros when they were here. What's your perspective about that? Does Kentucky need to rethink how they procure talent?
You definitely need to be outside the box. I do tell some kids like, hey man, you're just not a first round pick. And that's not a bad thing. Go look at the height, weight, length of these guys. There's a lot of ballers that go in the second round. Their tape is first round, but they don't meet these parameters. Chances are it's going to be hard to get a team to take a chance on you when there's all these guys out here that maybe don't have the production you do, but in 3 years, if he continues to develop, he should be better than you. So the first question, the thing that kept coming to my mind is just culture. I know guys that have taken less money in the NFL to stay in a situation. Maybe they had more money on the table elsewhere, but it's a winning culture here. I'm comfortable here. Now, that's not to say that the financial wasn't competitive, but ultimately it didn't come down to who offers $1 more. It's a composite decision. So being able to retain players after having a season like we had this year, it's just not going to happen. What am I signing up for? It's going to be very tough to retain players, especially when other programs are willing to pay whatever the asking price is. So culture comes to mind first, and that's building a program that players want to be a part of, that they realize immediately or when they're in it that, hey, I'm not going to get that anywhere else. And that goes to showing that you care. That goes to total and complete development of these players, not just from a football standpoint, but from a off the field perspective. Are we setting these kids up for futures outside of football? Hey man, if I got a Kentucky degree and I call somebody an alumnus of Kentucky, is he going to help me because I have this degree? And that's a responsibility for all of us. Everybody that's been through Kentucky and the whole community has to be involved with it. And then secondary, I just think with the acquiring of talent, looking for measurables and all that is great. I understand that. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying that, but I also feel like that's what everybody in the country is doing. Everybody in the country is looking for the 6'6" kid with long arms and the guy that looks like he could be a first round pick if he had 2-3 years in the weight room. And there's not a lot of those guys that slip through the crack. It does happen, but realistically, I'm telling you, that was one of the first things in me learning how to be a scout, was learning those position specifics, what we're looking for. I'm looking for height, weight, arm length, 40 time, short shuttle time. Like all of these things mean something. And if you go and look at whoever's drafted in the first round, 95% of those guys are going to have all those things you're looking for. And if you don't have that, you got to have something else that's elite that makes up for it. So I'll take the Aaron Donald, who's the best defensive lineman I've ever seen, who doesn't have the traditional height or weight for any of these things that you're looking for. But when you turn on the tape, I see a guy that's more explosive than anybody. I see a guy that you say that his weight is down, but put him in the weight room with anybody. He's stronger than all these guys. You know what I'm saying? Look at Kyler Murray, who was a former teammate there in Arizona, who's short and doesn't meet the traditional requirements for NFL quarterback. But anybody that's ever watched him play, it's easy to see how dynamic he is.
Yeah.
With his leg, even his arm talent is special. When he gets to running, he ain't got to be 6'6". I think I can work with this. You know what I mean? And so I think that Kentucky specifically needs to, I ain't gonna say get away from that, but I think you do need to turn over some rocks that other people not necessarily looking. Maybe this guy never develops into an elite NFL prospect, but he could be a really good college player. Maybe he could. It's hard to do that with your job on the line. It's hard to do that without knowing what this guy can develop. But one thing that I like to think about is the mental makeup of a person. They say what? The same water that hardens an egg or softens a potato. What is this kid made of? Am I finding the right kids from a mental standpoint that is going to come in here and grind and work and maximize every ounce of talent in his body? Now, maybe he doesn't have much talent as Joe Schmo, but he's operating at 100% of his talent, and Joe Schmo is only at 70%. I think that's what they got to do. But as far as Kentucky is concerned, I don't want to see any players that are D1 players lead the state of Kentucky. Now, they'll lose some to Louisville, but to me, it makes no sense to have D1 players leaving Kentucky and going to other schools. I see Ohio State come down and take a kid, Michigan, Alabama come and take a kid. I don't even want to see that. Kentucky doesn't produce the same amount of talent that the states do. As far as the SEC states, it's got to be on the bottom of that list as far as just the number of players that they're putting in the D1 every year. So if you're getting 5 to 10 players a year that are true D1 prospects, whatever that looks like, we got to throw the house. We got to go and build relationships with these kids and their families, not just as a senior or junior when it's time to recruit them, but as freshmen, as sophomores. Build relationships with the high school coaches. If I'm a high school coach, I'm thinking like, okay, I got Jarman, I got Morgan on the squad, and they're going to be D1 players. I don't want to just send them to a school to say, hey, I got them in school. I want to put them in situations where they're going to play, where they're going to have an opportunity to develop, where they're going to have an opportunity to be successful. And I think that's a great pathway. One of the reasons I went to Kentucky, being in Kentucky, is I felt like no matter what happened to me in Kentucky, they was going to look out for me. If I went up there and I got hurt as a freshman, as a sophomore, they weren't going to throw me away because I was a Kentucky kid. That's how I looked at it. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I felt like if I would have went to Ohio State, which is what it came down to, Ohio State gonna recruit one of me every year. So if I go up there and tear my ACL while I'm rehabbing, are they gonna take care of me? Are they gonna look after me? When I get back, are they gonna give me an opportunity to compete for my spot? Or is it just gonna be a situation where we got this guy that's a year younger, we'll let y'all compete, but you know how it goes. So, and I don't know if that's true or not either, but based on the way that they recruited me, I would say I was more important to Kentucky than I was to Ohio State.
Man, what you just described, Corey, is very impactful. And for me, very similar sentiment. I was born in Kentucky, grew up a Kentucky fan, but grew up down in Memphis. Ole Miss, UT, every SEC school. Memphis is just like this smorgasbord of SEC alumni. It's the people ultimately. And when I came to Kentucky, it just felt different. It felt different with Brooks, these older coaches, this NFL experience. And I just thought some of these young guys was just talking. But I felt like Brooks and some of these dudes, they were manifesting things. And they had gotten some of these guys in early, Woodyard and Bird and some of these other local guys that I felt like these guys were for real. And for me, 2 significant injuries, the ACL injury and the shoulder injury, before I even got on the field. I rehabbing 18 months before I got on the field. So my relationships were the strength staff and the training room. I really didn't know my teammates. Those were the places where I lived. You're absolutely right when you're talking about finding that right fit, going to a place that you feel like that they're genuinely invested in you as a person. Really good to hear you say that. Corey, with me in this role, being the president of the K Club, what role does an organization like the K Club play?
The first way in the NIL era, obviously with the dollar, pour money into the collectives and to whatever system that we're using to acquire talent. The second thing, and this may be even the most important thing, is it's all about the experience. I had an opportunity at Kentucky to host several recruits. And the one thing I'll say, I've never lied to a recruit. I wasn't going to tell them something that wasn't true, no matter how bad I wanted them to come. I was going to be completely authentic about my experience there. When you talk about the K Club, the alumni, how you treat the current players is instrumental into what they have to say about the university. Are the players well taken care of? I know they're well taken care of, but there's levels. And you really look out for these players. You love on them and you take them in. There was lots of people in my time in Kentucky that invited me over to have dinner so I could wash my laundry so that I could get a home-cooked meal. Really small gestures. But for a college kid living in a dorm room away from home for the first time, it really goes a long way. And somebody that's looking out for you, that never asks you for anything, doesn't want anything in return, just doing it to help you out, I think that goes a long way. And it trickles down. So you're loving on the players there, the current players, they host their recruits and talking to other players. Oh man, I love it here. They take such good care of me. I couldn't imagine myself going anywhere else. I know I'm not going to get this level of love and support everywhere. For me, I think that's a simple thing. It's a really easy thing to do. Be careful what you say to these kids on social media. You can be critical and you can be honest, because obviously we all want what's best for the program and we want a successful program. But at the same point, there's a line that you just shouldn't cross into being destructive, being too negative, especially when you consider you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-old kids, man. So
25 now.
huh?
I said 25 now, 18 to 20.
Yeah. It's really crazy now that this new JUCO thing too, from a scouting perspective, trying to keep everybody organized. What class is this guy? Making sure you got everything lined up. It's been a little bit of a challenge. So we're getting toward the end of these COVID year guys. This junior college rule is going to reset some things as well. I think these kids should have as much time to develop as possible. It's about the opportunity to compete, get your education, not even make a little bit of money too.
Yeah. You weren't a part of the Stoops regime, but you've obviously had a chance to view it and look at it as an alumnus. What's the perception of Kentucky amongst the NFL ranks, both from a program perspective and then from a prospect perspective? What do the masses in the NFL ranks think of Kentucky?
And from a teammate perspective, from your time as a player.
Interesting. It's varying opinions. I think that Kentucky has some respect with the people that actually watch football, with the people that actually evaluate the games. A lot of people just hear the name and just say, oh, no, Kentucky. I made so much money on Kentucky when I was playing, betting on Kentucky because...
Not as a player, but as an NFL guy.
Yeah, as an NFL player.
Yeah.
I'm
Clarify that.
Our teammates.
betting in the locker room with my teammate. That's what it was. X, Y, and Z went to this school and they play Kentucky this week. I could get them to give me 17 points. You know what I'm saying? This how disrespectful they would be toward Kentucky. And I said, okay, if you go give me that, yeah, we could bet it. And I raked up. From a talent perspective, I realize there's talent everywhere. It's really amazing how it works out. Kentucky's been putting guys out in the league. I think the guys that they do put out, they seem like they last. A good amount of them have had long careers. Maybe we don't put out the amount of guys in total number, but I can think of a number of guys off the top of my head that have long careers and have sustained throughout the entire time that they've been there. From a scouting perspective, Kentucky is respected, playing in the SEC, and even being competitive, you got to have a caliber of athlete that is going to translate toward the NFL. There is some questions about former teammate. People will say stuff about Kentucky in a negative light, but I also think that the guys that truly competed against Kentucky, they know what it is. It's just more of from a name recognition standpoint. We hear Kentucky basketball and we expect a good team. It really doesn't matter who's on the team, who's coaching the team. When you hear Kentucky basketball, you expect to see a good team. And that's just history. As far as the football is concerned, I think we've been a middle of the road to lower tier SEC programs.
Mark has had 2 10-win seasons, one with Terry Wilson at the quarterback position, another one with Will Levis. What is the right type of quarterback for Mark Stoops moving forward?
One that wins. I hate to put parameters on it. I think traditionally under Mark Stoops, we've been a really good defensive team. We've been able to run the ball really well. Even when we didn't have quarterbacks, we were able to run the ball at a really high level. I like the style of physical, control the clock, run the ball, play good defense, having a quarterback that is in that Will Levis mode of got a big arm, play action. We're going to still be a heavy run team, play action, take some shots down the field, mobile, can run, can extend plays, can pick up some yards with his legs and get first downs when we need him to. A hard-nosed, gritty, blue-collar kind of quarterback. That's what I would love to see. in college football, mobile quarterbacks are the king. The most dynamic offenses I've seen in college football, somebody at the quarterback position that can just change the game with his legs. There's so many lapses in discipline on defense, opportunities for a quarterback can take what would have been a negative play and turn it into a 25-yard run. But if we're going to continue to play the style that I feel like Mark Stoops has made his name on, I think that's what you need is a gritty, strong arm, play action style quarterback, somebody who can manage the game, but also can hit those big shots down the field, can make the explosive plays so that while we're grinding teams out with the run game, when the opportunities present itself, we can also get those 30, 40, 50, 60-yard chunk plays that really can bust open the game and make some things easier for you.
Corey, I personally struggle with some of Kentucky's defensive philosophy with the softer zone, that 3-down scheme. I like to see more disruption. We've had some elite athletes at corner that I've seen play and read the quarterback off zone coverage. So what's your perspective on some of the schematics? You've played for Raheem Morris. You've played for Mike Nolan. You've played for some of these guys that do some variety on the defensive side of the ball in the league.
Mm-hmm.
What's your perspective on some of the schematics of that zone coverage?
I'm in agreement with Morgan. I don't love the defensive philosophy. It's not what I would do personally, but I have seen it be successful. In my time as a player, I played in 4-3, I played in 3-4, I played in one gap attack systems, I played in two gap. I think the best coordinators marry the system and the talent. And the best coordinators can't be rigid in, hey, this is who I am, this is what we do. I think you have to be flexible at all times. And so maybe it's a little bit of a multiple thing or a hybrid kind of situation, or maybe I want to get to the point where we're doing this, but right now we don't have the talent for that. So this is what we're going to do in the meantime. Everybody has to check their ego at the door. The only thing that can matter is getting a successful result. And so, some of that may be, hey, in my past been this type of play call, or these are the type of concepts that we've run, and now this is what we're going to be doing. And there's some growth that has to happen in order to get to that point. But what I want to see is 11 guys on defense playing with their hair on fire, with a clear-cut philosophy. This is what we're doing. And I think it was inconsistent many games where dam just seemed to break. And I'm looking for a huge improvement in that area moving forward. I'm not sure that it's as clear-cut as, let's change to a 4-3. I'm not saying that's not the right answer. I'm just saying that it has to be a complete marriage between the concepts that you're asking these guys to run and the talent that you're having on the field. If you got more DN talent, then we want more DNs playing. If you got more linebacker talent, then we want more linebackers playing. I think that's the best way to put it. And as a coach, your responsibility is always to be continuing to learn, continuing to develop, learning new concepts. The game is constantly changing. Your roster's constantly changing. And we all have to evolve or be left behind ultimately. Moving forward, I'm just looking forward to us putting a better product on the field, offensively and defensively, and getting back to what I've come to know as Kentucky football under Stoops, which is a physical, hard-nosed defensive football team that even if we lose, it's going to be a battle. It's going to come down to the fourth quarter and us making plays. And I think we can get back there. It's just going to be a matter of bringing in the right guys and having them gel together, having it click.
What are your thoughts about the odd front defense as opposed to a true four? When I was in Washington, one of my friends was Albert Haynesworth. And I know Albert struggled with some of the schematics of what they wanted him to do in the defense versus what the Titans asked him to do in the defense versus what the Tennessee Vols asked him to do in the defense. In college, when you see some of the two gaps games, some of the things the guys are being asked to do, is there a mental health element to this? Is there a physical fatigue element to this where guys are constantly going up against chip blocks, double teams, those type of things? What are your thoughts on that?
I played in both systems. I think it depends on the players. If I got 4 D linemen that are guys, I want them to go. I want them to be disruptive. I want them to be wreaking havoc on the game. If they're wrong sometimes, I'm okay with that. And you have to accept that. I can't be a heavy blitz team and then lose my mind when the quarterback finds the open man and we give up a play. There's risk reward to everything. But if I don't have 4 dudes, I would rather play a D-line lockout, 2 gap. We're not giving up nothing explosive. We should be 2nd and 7, 3rd and 2. That's how we're going to win. Then we get off the field on 3rd down. But with the first style more disruptive, yeah, we should end the season with more TFL, more negative plays for us. But we also probably going to have more explosive plays that we give up. Because if they do find the crease, everything is not always perfectly gap sound, perfectly aligned. In a perfect world, it'll be both disruptive and sound. But if you watch film, you realize that most of the time, those disruptive TFLs in the backfield where guys are blowing up plays, they wrong as hell. And you never wrong when you think, but
Right.
in reality, that's not his guy. He's not supposed to be there, but it's disruptive. And if I got a guy that's going to get me 3 TFLs a game, or I'll pose the question to you guys. I'm going to give you a D tackle, and he'll give you 3 TFLs a game and a sack. But he's going to solely be responsible for giving 75 rushing yards to the other team. That could be a touchdown. You don't know when it's going to happen, but what would you rather have? Would you rather have that, or would you rather have a guy that's not going to get any TFLs, but he's not going to give up, he's not going to expose the defense at all? He may have 3 or 4 tackles for 3 yards down the field or whatever, but he never gives up an explosive run, and he also never gets any negative plays for your team. So,
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think from a defensive coordinator perspective, a question that I'm posing is that every guy's not Corey Peters. Every guy's not Vince Wilfork, where they're fine being in that nose, 2 gap, not having the expectation that they're going to have TFLs, that they embrace a role where they have to be double teamed. They have to be chipped, which gives time for that linebacker, for that safety to get in that gap. Some of these guys want to make tackles. They want to make TFLs. They want to get sacks. They want to get quarterback hits. So where's the balance?
You definitely have to find balance there. And I think from a coach's standpoint, you have to give clear directions. What is it that you want? I've had both types of coaches. Hey, I could deal with you giving up a play here or there as long as your plays count. The year quarterback, Jameis Winston, led the league in touchdowns and interceptions, and then he's out of a job. So obviously, it's not the right formula. From a coach's standpoint, you have to determine, okay, he's not going to throw any interception, but he only going to throw 14 touchdowns on the season.
Yeah.
Is that good enough? Or what is the balance there between taking your risks or creating your explosive plays versus, hey, we can be a super hurry-up team and go fast, fast, fast. And then you look up and you went 3 and out a couple times and you realize, man, we ain't had a ball in the first half, but 2 minutes.
Corey, what about those teams that you played on in Atlanta, where on the other side of the ball you had Julio and Roddy White, and I think y'all had a veteran Steven Jackson at one point, Matt Ryan. Those offenses where they could score 40 on any given day, because to me it's always like it depends. If you've got an offense that can make up for some of the slippage, you might be okay with more turnovers and trying to create more possessions.
Yeah, I think for us in Atlanta, and this is just my perspective, we were such a good offensive football team. Things that we did on defense, we ran light boxes a lot of times with a shell and encouraged teams to run on us. And so we weren't as stout against the run as we could have been just by alignment and what we're trying to take away. We encouraged teams to run the ball on us. We made plays, 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2, that type of situation. We spent a lot of time in practice on red zone defense. So the whole idea is that this game, we're not going to give up any big plays. If you're going to score on us, you're going to have to run 15 plays to do it.
Yeah.
Can you run 15 plays without
holding
penalty, getting a false start penalty, without turning the ball over, without just getting stopped on down? Can you do it? It's really tough to do. And then once we get to the red zone, we lock in. We got the most reps of anything in practice in this area of the field. Our red zone defense should be better because we work on it more than anything else. We know that our offense is going to score 30 points. So if we can just stop teams from scoring touchdowns on us, even if they kick a field goal every single time down the field, then we're going to win more of those games than we tend to lose. So I'm not saying that there's a right way or a wrong way. I'm just saying that everything has to be together. If we're going to
complementary.
Right. Now, if I got a lockdown defense that really can shut things down and people are going to have trouble scoring any points on us, I don't mind running the ball on 3rd and 2, run the ball again. If we punt, that's not a bad. I'm not scared of punting. Now, if I know that my defense, I might need to be a little bit more aggressive on offense. So if I know I got a really good defense, I'm perfectly content winning game 17-10, 13. And it's just a matter of whoever's in the big seat, head coach, is setting the vision for the program and looking at what we got and say, hey, man, this year, and it always changes in college football, or this year we got a freshman quarterback, or this year we're struggling on the O-line, or the receiving core is not good. Whatever it is, to build a top to bottom program that can sustain through that. And that has to look different every year.
That's all the time that we have for this episode. Thank you for listening and supporting the LetterWinner podcast. Thanks to UK Hall of Fame defensive tackle Corey Peters for coming on and sharing his insights. You can watch and follow us on all major platforms using the handle @LetterWinnerPod. I'm Jeremy Jarman.
And I'm former QB Morgan Newton.
Have a great week.